All right, we have one more speaker coming up tonight. Let's go ahead and bring her out. Please welcome to the stage, Miss Valerie Ward.
Hi, everybody. I am more nervous than I expected to be. I was like, I got this. I did extemporaneous speaking in high school where you have 30 seconds to make notes and then you give a speech about current events. And I was like, I'll just do that. But for improv, I got this, and I do improv all the time. But I'm still very nervous. So I was inspired by Sarah Marie's speech to share that with you. And also, a lot of the things she touched on, I feel like are really nicely in conversation with what I'm talking about today, which is real emotions, real connection, and real relationships in improvised theater. This is just something that I've been exploring lately in my work, and I feel like it's kind of the next level that I'm diving into. I think improv is really cool because there's always more to it. You learn the kind of that first level of like, oh, I can say yes to other people, and that makes cool things happen. And then you start to learn skills, and you keep getting inspired over and over again. And things that seemed so true when you started seem completely untrue 5 years later, and you're like, I know the truth now. That was bullshit. This is the real truth. But I think you just discover new facets of it and new things that are true for you in your moment, in your journey, in your discovery. And so these are the things that feel really true for me right now. But let me go back a little bit and kind of talk about one of those moments I had a few years ago, a big revelation for me. And it's the idea of the two shows in improv. I either learned it directly from Bill Arnett or heard someone talk about it who learned it directly from Bill Arnett in Chicago. But it really changed the way that I and my troupe mates thought about improv. And the two shows idea is this, that anytime you're doing an improv show, or really any kind of performance, you're doing two shows. The first one is, I guess, kind of what you're presenting to the audience, or what I think of as the unreality. Like, we're doing an improvised Charles Dickens show. So the first show is, we are people in Victorian London who are orphans or rich people, and we're having conversations, and we're telling the story. That's the first show. When you go see scripted theater, usually you're seeing mostly the first show. Movies want you to see that first show. Then there is the second show, which is, in some sense, the reality of what's happening. I am a 33-year-old woman alive in Austin, Texas in the year 2015. I have a silly hat on. I'm here with my friends. I have feelings about them, and we are just making something up together, and it's kind of ridiculous. And we're pretending to be in Victorian London. That's the second show. And both of those shows exist at all times in every improv show you'll ever see. And what's really cool about that is before I kind of realized that idea, I think my group had been trying very hard to play the first show and only the first show. We wanted our improv to look like scripted theater. We wanted it to look like we had rehearsed it perfectly. And as Lance has demonstrated, that's not going to be what happens on stage. If you want something to look perfectly scripted and rehearsed, then just go home and fucking write it and rehearse it, and then come back when you've got it right. Why do improv? Because we have this second show. And when you can embrace that and embrace that there is a reality that the audience sees of we're just people who know each other, who are friends, making this up together and enjoying it, that adds a deeper layer to what's going on stage. And so it gave us the freedom to step out of what was happening. If something felt awkward on stage, to kind of be like, you know, if there was a confusion about who was whose mother and who was whose father, and, oh, these two people can't get married because they're actually sister and brother, which happens a lot in Dickens stories, to step out and say, no, you two can't get married because you're brother and sister. And we all go, oh, okay, cool. We'll do something else instead. And just take that moment instead of kind of trying to awkwardly work our way through the confusion in character, just like lay it out there. And I think it's so fun to see different groups play with it because you can try really hard to do the first show, and that can be really fulfilling to just commit to a style or a genre or a world you're creating and not let that mask slip. Just like really immerse yourself into that unreality that you're creating on stage. It can also be super fun to just not really give a shit about that first show and use that as an excuse to show how cool you and your friends are and how much you love each other and how much you love that people came to watch you have fun together, to tease each other, to poke each other, to play with each other. When you see groups like Bad Boys or the Knuckleball Now, they do that all the time, and it's so great to see because you're like, these guys love each other and they're having so much fun and they're letting me watch and they're letting me in on it. That's so awesome. And you can let both of those exist together. You can jump back and forth between the two of them. And it was mind-blowing to me when I realized that that was okay, that I didn't have to do everything perfectly all the time, that it wasn't selling out the art to enjoy what I was doing in the moment. That was a revelation to me. Now, what's kind of coming into my consciousness is this idea of kind of collapsing the two shows into one. So it's not a matter of switching between the reality and the unreality, or choosing which one to play and to what degree at what moment, but seeing if there's a way, playing with the idea of making there be no difference between the reality and the unreality in a really interesting way. And that's what I mean by real connections, real emotions, real relationships with the people on stage. And one of the first things that kind of made me think about, that made me really enjoy this work, is the vulnerability that it gives you, like Sarah Marie was talking about, that you can be truly open to whatever's happening as a character, as a human, and that everything is truly okay. As a performer, as a person in the story, everything is okay. And it's this beautiful idea, this mantra I've been thinking of a lot lately, that's been kind of my personal mantra, is open eyes, open heart, open mind. Open eyes is that willingness to just see what's there, to have that honesty, that integrity of being, to notice everything that's happening and accept that as part of the world, accept your nervousness, accept the weird conversation you had with your teammate before you went on stage, accept the crush that's in the audience watching you and you want to impress them, accept all of that, see everything as part of the world. Open mind, to be willing to let that enter into the world, to be willing to accept what other people are bringing in and what they're seeing, to accept things you might have missed that they've noticed. And then the open heart, to really let all that affect you and become part of what you're creating. And it brings you to the state where you're not performing emotions or acting like you feel a certain way, but you are being that way. You are feeling those emotions. And it feels so powerful. I first kind of started exploring this idea when Jason Schatz and Colleen Doyle came to Austin for a whirlwind workshop as they were moving to LA from Chicago. They have a group called Dummy, and they're amazing. And their workshop was really about that idea of really connecting with the person you're on stage with. All the exercises were just like fine-tuning that first moment of really being present with the other person, of just saying, yeah, being open to what they have, looking for that thing where you're not just saying, oh, of course, I'll accept whatever you say because that's improv and we have to say yes, but finding that inspiration of, oh, yes, we share this, you and I, we really do share this. And it's so amazing because with every human being, there is something that you share with them. There is that moment where if you take the time to have the conversation, to be open, to let yourself out there, you'll find the things that are true for the two of you. Whether it's just two people saying, oh my God, we both love our dogs so much. I know what you're feeling because I felt that too about my dog. Or even, I don't have a dog, but I have a cat. And what you feel about your dog, I know I feel that about my cat. We're the same. We're vibrating at the same frequency in that moment. That's a real connection. And when you can find that on stage, then, the person on stage is you're together, you're working as a team, and you can create something that's amazing. You don't have to try to worry if what you're gonna do is pleasing to them, or if they're gonna hate your offer, or just say, well, they said yes because I know they have to say yes, but I don't know if they're inspired. you're there, you're together, and you're vibrating together. And that is a real connection, and that's amazing. The next kind of level of exploring this came through the experience of doing Nothing and Everything, improvised Chekhov, directed by John Bolden, which we did in November, December of last year. And Chekhov is a very interesting playwright. A lot of people say that his plays are about nothing, that they're a tragedy of inaction. For example, in The Cherry Orchard, one of his most famous plays, a family has an estate that's crumbling. The woman who's inherited it spins frivolously and has so much debt. And a friend of the family tells them, you can save the estate, you can save your beloved childhood home if you just rent out some summer cottages. And she says, oh, we can't, but surely there must be something we can do to save the estate. Surely we can do something to preserve it. And this guy is all the time like, yeah, we just rent these summer cottages. And she's like, oh, well, but surely there must be something we can do, anything at all. And it's just this unwillingness of her to, listen to reason, to be so attached to her ideas. And anyway, the emotions are all very sublimated, but also on the surface in Chekhov's work. People say what's on their mind, and they don't say what's on their mind. They let things simmer just under the surface to the point where they can't stand it anymore. And one of the great things about improvising that was really bringing that feeling of the performer and the person together, of collapsing those two worlds into one. It was this unbelievably freeing feeling to be in a show where if you made a dumb joke as your character, you could just say, I feel very awkward about that joke I just made, and just release it. Let that feeling go. Instead of having to pretend like you were a type of person who makes awkward jokes, or pretend that it was a good joke, or pretend that that joke that someone made was good when you thought it was awkward. To just be able to say, I don't like your jokes. And just to be able, the thing that everyone knows, that everyone feels, all the performers on stage know is true, the audience sees, because the audience sees everything. And to just say what's there, and then it becomes released into the air. Instead of a weight that you have to try to figure out how to insert or hide or manage, it disappears and floats into the ether and just becomes part of the world. And it's so amazingly freeing to bring that real emotion that you as a performer are feeling and express it through the character. You don't have to lose yourself. You just bring yourself so fully present to what you're doing that it becomes what you're doing, and there's no difference between the two. It's almost as if Sarah Marie was talking about the observer and the actor, as if the observer gets to speak through the actor in this beautiful way. It's just amazing. And then lately in Austin Secrets, as Cody mentioned before, we take people's secrets. They submit anonymously via postcard, and we perform them on stage. We find the truth as best we understand it and give it to the audience. And it's this really amazing connection that we build with the audience, because we take someone's truth, a single sentence, maybe 2 sentences on a postcard, maybe a picture, and to be able to present that, we have to find what's true in that for us. And it's a really vulnerable way to do improv, because you find something in what someone else felt the need to share with the world, and you say, I'm going to share that too, and you can see me doing it. I'm not just on a postcard, I'm here in front of you. And there's something in that truth that rang true with me, so I'm going to tell you what that is for me. I've done scenes that let me express issues I have with my mother. I've watched scenes that were uncomfortably close to my own experience in romantic relationships. And every scene out there has some little bit of kernel of truth for me, resonates with something completely different in the audience. I think that's why it's so powerful, because everybody can find that little bit of truth that reflects on them, that hits some part of their soul and shines back at the person who gave it to them and makes that connection. And it's amazing. So when we create these real connections, when we bring these real emotions to the stage, it creates real relationships between human beings. I think the reason people do art of any kind, whether it's painting, performance, writing, is to connect with people. We say, this is how I see things. Do you see things this way too? Please tell me that you understand me, that you know me, that you see me, that the way I see the world isn't isolated, that we have something in common. Because people, I am desperate for connection with people. I want it so bad. And I think that's why people share what they have, because we want connections with each other. And when you can bring that real emotion, bring that vulnerability, bring your real self to your performance, to your art, you can connect with your performers on stage and find something deeper and truer and real and rich with them. You can connect with the audience and have that reflection of your truth and yourself with them. And you can connect and create a real, more relationship with yourself. I feel like so many people are afraid of themselves, afraid of sharing that with the world, afraid of being rejected, that we don't even know our true selves that well. I've been going to therapy for several years, and it's a long process of building a relationship with myself and then getting to practice that on stage and with my friends and in my relationships, and being okay with who I am, of loving myself, of really caring for myself the way I want to be cared for by other people, the way I want to care for other people, and creating that relationship with the performers, with the audience, with yourself is just so powerful. So I've really been enjoying that in improv lately, and thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of Got Your Back's Comedy Nerd Out. We want to say thank you for watching. If you'd like to check out more episodes from us at Got Your Back Podcast, you can go to goibpodcast.com for episodes, or you can search for Got Your Back on whatever podcasting service you use. iTunes, Stitcher, we're on all of them. If you could drop us a rate and review, we would also appreciate that as well.